Government calls on armed forces to raise combat readiness and end Houthi coup. Iran-backed Houthi militia attacks different areas in a Dara governorate. The United Nations says that Yemen's humanitarian crisis is aggravating. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Roshan Fouad. The head of the Presidential Leadership Council returned to the temporary capital, Aden, after conducting a foreign tour. During the tour, the chairman of the PLC held talks with leaders of neighboring countries, UN officials, as well as activists from the Yemeni communities abroad. Al-Alimi praised the role of the regional and international countries in trying to alleviate the suffering of the Yemeni people. The Yemeni government repeated its call to the international community to pressure the Houthis for peace. In a meeting in Aden, the government said it's committed to comprehensive peace that is based on the international reference. The call comes after 2 weeks of failed efforts to renew the truce. The Yemeni government called on the international community to target and disrupt what is called the financial network of the Houthi militia. Yemeni Foreign Minister Ahmed bin Mubarak warned that the Iranian-backed rebels could seek to import oil through fake companies and use it in financing war fronts. Bin Mubarak said during a meeting with the Dutch ambassador to Yemen, said that the Houthis refused to extend the truce, confirms that the rebel militia is not committed to peace. The Yemeni government directed the armed forces to be ready for an upcoming developments, especially after the Houthis rejected renewing the truce. The following report gives more details.
Since the Iran-backed Houthi militia overran key northern cities and took over the capital Sana'a in late 2014, Yemen has been engulfed in a civil war. The conflict in Yemen has killed tens of thousands of people and displaced 4 million and pushed the country to the brink of starvation. The truce began on April 2 and was extended twice until October 2. After the failure to extend it for a third time, Yemen's leadership has instructed its military forces to increase battle readiness in preparation for impending significant changes. The government also gave orders for all military and security forces that support it to get ready to liberate state institutions from the Houthi militia's control. In addition, Prime Minister Ma'in Abdel Malik stated that his government is eager to extend and expand the UN-brokered truce. Earlier in the month, the UN Special Envoy for Yemen, Hans Grunberg, announced that no agreement had been reached to renew the truce between the warring parties, calling for continued efforts towards the aim. In addition, Mr. Grunberg said that the success and advantages of the truce should not be understated. He noted that during the ceasefire, there had been no significant military operations and a 60% drop in casualties.
The truce came into effect after almost 8 years of conflict and brought the longest period of calm yet. In 6 months, its benefits for the people of Yemen included no major military operations and a 60% decrease in casualties. The reopening of Sana'a Airport, with 56 commercial round-trip flights to date, transporting almost 27,000 passengers who sought medical attention, educational or business opportunities abroad.
According to the UN, the war has resulted in millions of displaced people, hundreds of thousands of deaths, and put a large portion of the population on the verge of starvation.
The Iran-backed Houthi militia escalated in a Dala front by conducting a number of infiltrations on Marais area. But such attempts were deterred by the government forces. The following report has more details.
The military units stationed in Marais front north of Dala thwarted 3 infiltrations attempts carried out by the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels toward the eastern side in Al-Qara sites. Repeated infiltration attempts toward the joint forces positions failed, and the Houthi militia members were forced to flee while sustaining losses among their members.
The Houthi militia tried to penetrate the eastern sides of Muray's front. Our forces, however, were ready for them and they blocked their repeated advances that followed through the last days. Our forces inflicted them with losses in lives. Our heroes, the heroes of the revolutions of October and September, are ready and the fingers are on the trigger to humiliate this imamate rule.
Members of the Houthi militia also targeted a number of military sites and residential areas in Al-Fakhir, Al-Kharaza and their surroundings with tanks, mortar and various other types of weapons. After their losses on the rest of the fronts, the government forces inflicted the rebels with losses in the fronts of Al-Thawqa front west of Al-Dala, according to a military statement. The new confrontations between the government forces and the Houthi rebels came while the latter continue creating new military sites, after which Houthi reinforcements arrived recently to the area, aiming at military escalation and for fear of any advance by the joint forces.
The U.S. ambassador to Yemen, Stephen Fagan, called on the Houthi rebels to open roads in Taiz. This comes a day after the death and injury of dozens of people in a crash on a rugged mountain road linking Taiz with Aden. The U.S. Navy seized a new drug shipment valued at about $29 million in the Gulf of Oman. This is the second operation of its kind in less than a week. The U.S. Central Command said that the U.S. Coast Guard seized the drugs while it was on marine patrols in the international waters of the Gulf of Oman. In Taiz, the Medical Committee for the Wounded held a press conference in which it reviewed the great achievements and obstacles it facing in its work. At the press conference, the Medical Committee announced suspension of its duties towards the wounded and assumed full responsibility on the local authorities.
We announced by this conference we are halting receiving any wounded. The Medical Committee has appealed repeatedly to higher authorities, concerned bodies and the Presidential Leadership Council to intervene, but with no response. We were faced instead with negligence.
The United Nations Population Fund said the humanitarian situation remains alarming in Yemen, where nearly 3/4 of the population will need some form of humanitarian assistance in 2022. The United Nations confirmed that the torrential rains caused widespread flooding across 18 governorates, affecting about 200,000 people, most of whom were internally displaced. According to the UN Fund, the relief operation in Yemen is still severely underfunded. The humanitarian cell of the National Resistance provided food aid to male and female teachers in Al-Khoukha schools in Al-Hudaydah Governorate. The aid included 620 food baskets for workers in the education sector as part of the teacher support campaign in the West Coast. Coming next. Aurora Humanitarian Prize honors Yemeni Peace Activist for 2022 awards.
This is one of the saddest visits I have ever done in my professional life. This hospital sees 2,500 patients per day. Landmine survivors aging from 7 years old to over 50. I have seen super malnourished children that just broke my heart, with their mothers who have been here for a month or longer. But I am just impressed by the medical service providers for their commitment. This hospital is run by the UN and humanitarian partners. There are immense needs. Half of Yemeni hospitals are not functioning, or they are completely destroyed by the war. We need more support to save lives in Yemen, children, women, and men.
Welcome back. The International Organization for Migration announced it intends to increase voluntary humanitarian return flights for Ethiopian migrants from Yemen. Since the beginning of this year, the International Organization for Migration evacuated more than 1,800 migrants from Aden and Ma'rib. The organization estimates that there are approximately 43,800 migrants currently stranded across Yemen. Aurora International honored the Yemeni local mediator Hadi Jam'an for his great humanitarian role in Yemen. Jam'an was awarded the prize in appreciation for his efforts to retrieve the bodies of the dead from the front lines of the battlefronts. This report has more details.
Aurora Prize is a competition that is launched every year for awakening humanity by reaching peace builders around the world and rewarding them with a global humanitarian award. A few days ago, a Yemeni citizen named Hadi Jam'an was honored at Aurora's ceremony, among the 3 most prominent humanitarian individuals in the world, for his role in spreading peace in the Yemeni society. Hadi Jam'an is a peace activist who works as a body collector in Yemen. Since 2016, Hadi has been serving as a local mediator in the bloody conflict between the Houthis and the government forces. Among the tasks that Hadi and his team of volunteers carry out is collecting the bodies of those killed on both sides of the battlefields and handing them over to their families. Within 5 years, Hadi Jam'an and his team have been able to return the bodies of more than 1,000 fighters to their families.
عملي كوسيط، عملي أنا وفريقي كوسطاء في هذا المجال لا يقتصر على الجثث فقط، الجثث أو الأسرى فقط، وإنما في كل ما يعاني المواطن. الاحتجاز في النقاط أو التنقل ما بين طرف وآخر، الخدمات التنموية التي تتعثر.
He succeeded along with his trained team of volunteers to retrieve the bodies of over 1,800 fighters from the front lines, in addition to their contributions in negotiations to release over 300 prisoners of war. Before the war, Jam'an worked for a sustainable development organization, and he was asked to help find the bodies of 2 men in 2015. After that, Jam'an felt the importance of this role, to return bodies to their families, and he usually collects them from the toughest locations.
كم نراه جميل عندما أني أتي بجثة أوصلها إلى عائلة، أوصلها إلى طرف، أسد فجوة كانت مغطية على هذه الأسرة، حتى ولو كان الأمر يدعو إلى الألم عندما يرى ابنها جثة، إلا أنه في نفس اللحظة يسعد عندما ينتهي مرحلة الشتات.
Jam'an is exposing his life to danger every day. He has even been shot at and detained several times. This all to protect innocent bodies whose their souls have left our world. Yet their families keep looking for their bodies to get honored and buried properly, rather than being left as praise for rotten stray animals.
3 people were killed after they were drowned in a water diversion canal. This report has more details.
Children, women, and youth drowned in the lake of Assad Canal. About 24 people died, most of whom were children. They went out for a picnic to enjoy their time, but unfortunately 3 family members died after drowning in the dam.
هم 3 من
There are 3 people who fell in the dam while they were having a picnic. Hopefully they can find solution so that there wouldn't be more victims.
Hardly a month passes before the city wakes up to a new incident. Sources indicate that 1 or more victims drowned in the waters of the dam, either drowning in dirt swamps or the stream of water flow that many displaced families go to so that they can enjoy their time. This makes them vulnerable to dangers and death, with the absence of guiding signs or the provision of a fence that prevents citizens from approaching dangerous places. The successive incidents prompted the citizens to place warnings on the walls, warning against approaching and swimming in the dangerous dirt lake, while the role of the concerned authorities was absent in developing solutions.
I call on the authorities to at least put signs around the water to forbid children from crossing a specific line. There have been many victims, but hopefully this will be the last case. The cases of victims increased in the last years, so we call on the authorities to put banners and signs to warn parents and people from the danger of swimming and drowning in these places to avoid any more cases.
With the lack of public outlets in the city, the displaced and the city's residents have been forced to search for other alternatives in order to spend enjoyable times there, even if it threatens their lives in a city that has been exhausted by war and displacement.
Despite the war, people with disability continue to struggle to survive and make a difference. This report gives more details on how those disabled people in Aden coped during the war.
The aesthetics of these masterpieces were not produced by the hands of professional makers, but rather by the hands of talented children of determination in the city of Aden. They didn't give up on their disability, but made it a motive for creativity and talent, and proceeded to bend it in order to develop their abilities and refine their skills through an exhibition and a charitable bazaar.
There are some projects that are being implemented in Aden, and we encourage these initiatives carried out by civil organizations which introduce services for the public interest.
The reality of the talented in this country may be tragic as a result of the lack of support and care, but it's more painful for talented people with disability, despite the efforts and attention of societal entities in this category.
This event is to help the disabled students explore their hidden talents and merge them into the society. We launched this event to help the disabled, as no one else is helping them. We are trying to develop their skills and talents, as they enjoy intellectual abilities, but no one can see that.
The disability prevents these creative people of determination from revealing what's going on in their hearts. But this disability didn't prevent them from being creative and productive, expressing their thoughts in their own way.
Here is a reminder of the main headlines. Government calls on armed forces to raise combat readiness and end Houthi coup. Iran-backed Houthi militia attacks different areas in a Dala Gulf raid. The United Nations says that Yemen's humanitarian crisis is aggravating. This is the end of the news. It was Roshan Fouad. See you soon.